You're listening to REIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out REIARadio.com.
When you're working a W-2 job and everyone you know is W-2, everyone equates time, like money, to hours of time. Mm-hmm. And like when you make $25 an hour or $30 an hour and you look at buying things, your distance between the achievability of that is measured in your dollars per hour, mm-hmm. right? And so when you're just surrounded by everyone in your life is W-2, is working hourly, mm-hmm. these things that we do seem impossible.
This episode is brought to you by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions, we have trillions with a T to lend. 844-WE-CLOSE or go online, jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
Welcome to REIA Radio with Galas.
He's such a diva.
Hey, I get only a small portion of the podcast I get to talk, so I got to just make sure that the portion I do is amazing.
You milk it for all it's worth.
Exactly.
Neil, speaking of milk, we
Speaking of milk,
have 2 episodes. We're almost like The Biggest Loser, because the last guy we had into the studio lost. What did Gabe lose?
I mean, wasn't it 60 pounds in less than a year?
Yeah, I mean, pretty impressive. I joked that he was half the man he used to be. Now you roll in here and you're how much lighter?
40 pounds this year.
40 pounds. Would you mind, what was the impetus behind the effort?
Yeah, it was an Instagram ad. It was all backdrop, and this super intense man came on, and he was like, "Hey, good enough guy.
He just spoke to you, huh?
Are you tired of being good enough? Good enough dad? Good enough businessman? Good enough husband? We can change that," right? And so I was like,
"No, he didn't."
Yeah, swear to God, I was like, I'm in. You're speaking to me. And so
Wow.
I joined this crazy group. It was called Superhuman Fathers. It was incredible. And so essentially, it was a fitness challenge, and I had 4 tasks every single day. I had to follow their workout, which is like 2 hours of weightlifting. It was really high volume, really intense. I had a detailed meal plan that I had to weigh out my macros for everything. Ugh. And I had to read the Bible every day, which was a new experience for me. And I had to journal every single day.
Okay.
And
how long?
For the journaling and reading.
Yeah. I mean, like, how long was the program? Is it like 75 hard, or you do it for 75 days?
Until you get to a 6-pack.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And so I shredded down to a 6-pack.
That'd be a lifelong journey for me.
Touched that right before the holiday season, and then now I've lost it thanks to Christmas and the holidays.
It just goes that quick, huh?
It goes quick, man. It's hard to get down that way.
It was there.
Yeah, I'll get it back. But then what was crazy was every day at 2:30 I had an accountability call. And so, can I swear on here?
Sure.
A little bit. So
yeah.
every day on here, every day I had an accountability call at 2:30 with 30 other men, like in my like the legion or
in your
crew,
plan or whatever,
squad, right?
Your squad.
Yeah. And so we'd have to like report up, and if you did all the activities, you were a beast. You were a beast for the day. And if you missed one, you were a bitch. And then you had to call yourself a bitch, and then 20 other men would be like, "Why'd you let us down?"
And go read the Bible.
Yeah, why are you, right? It was like, why are you failing? Like, why are you letting us down? We're all doing this together. And so I had to do that. I did that for 120 days straight. Went like 90 days, never missed a workout, and like got really dialed in. And then it ended with flying out to San Diego to go through like Navy SEAL Hell Week for 3 days.
Wait, that was part of this program
Yes.
you actually signed up for?
Yes.
On Instagram.
Was that in the fine print?
Oh yeah, I was all for it.
Oh,
But it's
okay.
like, yeah.
So they didn't hide that in there, and they're like, hey, good job for the last 6 months. Now we're going to kill you.
Yeah. And it's like the whole goal was to get in shape enough to be able to participate in that challenge. And so I flew out to San Diego, and it was like 3 days. It was about 2.5 days of like Navy SEAL Hell Week. And so like you get there and you just like run into the ocean and come out and bury yourself in sand and pour it into your face. And then you get up and you run sprints and do burpees and do it all over again. Fill a sandbag, and when I carried it up and down the mountain for like 6 hours, And it's a 30, 40 pounds just up and down. And it was incredible.
This was 3 days?
2.5 days.
2.5 days?
Yeah.
When you think back to that, and this was when?
October.
Okay, so this is fresh. This is like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay, when you think back on that experience, what are your main takeaways?
It's amazing. We all say we don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is either you make the time or you don't make the time. And so the way I learned to hold myself accountable and reprioritize my day and my schedule and my expectations and just like how far I could push myself. Because 6 weeks before it was time to go to San Diego, I tore my quad.
Ooh.
Oh.
I was squatting heavy in my basement. I tore my quad. And I'm 6 weeks from this challenge that I've prepared 3.5 months for. I've like devoted my life to being in shape and doing this, and now I tore my quad. And so I had a moment like look in the mirror, like anyone can make an excuse and quit and be like, hey, I can't do it. Here's my doctor's note. Here's my note from mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And instead I never missed a workout.
No, from my mom.
Yeah, right.
That'd
like,
go over well.
Okay, right? You know what I
That group.
mean? Yeah. And so like I actually
They'd definitely be calling you a bitch after that.
Oh yeah. So like I tore my quad. It was like 11 o'clock on a Monday night. I like limp out of my basement, get in my truck, get to a Walgreens, get crutches, come home, go to bed, wake up 4 hours later, do my chest day. And I'm like benching with one leg out in the air, one leg on the ground. And then I literally never missed a workout. Obviously, leg days I had to supplement. Cardio I had to supplement. I got into rehab. And they're like, Neil, this is like a 4 to 6 week recovery. And I was like, great.
About to ask that. Yeah.
And I was like, great, I'm competing in 6 weeks. So let's get to work. And I think if any other time in my life, I would have taken that as like my get out of jail free card out of doing something hard. But instead I kept in the mindset and I kept myself accountable and I leaned into the group. And I mean, it was a life-changing experience for just what I was able to do, what I'm capable of.
What kind of connections did you make out of that? Like with the people in your group?
Actually, really powerful connections because this group wasn't cheap, and they actually have like a high performance coaching that's a really significant investment, and you can't join that if you can't complete what they call phase 1. So their mindset is if you can't do this challenge, you're not going to be able to be a candidate for phase 2. And so, I mean, it was a significant investment. And so when I'm out there competing and in these groups, I mean, I'm meeting like real estate attorneys, tax attorneys, business owners, doctors, people that own franchises, realtors in California, all sorts of people actually. And because I do some work of like raising capital sometimes for like syndications here locally, it was a great opportunity to meet people who want to invest in some of the things that I do.
But that wasn't even part of why you did it,
No.
right? That just happened to be
100%. Yeah, it was not to network and come out of the financial game. It was all just to, get
better.
dialed in mentally and physically, which just go hand in hand.
Did you guys ever compare notes on what you guys were scrolling on Instagram when you found that and started and signed up?
But they did tell us it was like they had like 2 ads, and one ad was like, come be a part of this. And the other lad's like, you lazy loser, right? And like that ad just blew it out of the water. Like the one that was like, hey, good enough guy. You tired of being just enough? Like that was the one that had the outsized conversion.
I want to watch it now.
I have it. I got it. I was like, I'm now friends with the owner of this. I met him. We worked out. Like he was there. We're friends now. I have to sell. And it's like, I was like, send me that ad because that was the best ad I've ever seen in my life.
Can you share ballpark what something like this costs?
Phase 1, they just upped it, but I think it's now. When I got it, it was $5,000 for phase 1. Now it's like $10,000, and then the coaching's like $15,000 a quarter. So I mean, you're paying $60,000 a year, but these people come into your life, and I mean, there's people that have done it that have tripled their sales results in 90 days. And not like a sales guy, but like he runs a dentist practice. And so tripling the top line on something like that is really significant. And
Are these people all around the world?
Yeah, it's nationwide.
Okay, so
Across the
USA.
country. Yep.
So anybody else in Omaha do it with you?
Actually, yeah. There was a guy, he lives in Elkhorn, and he was an offensive lineman for the Lions.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then he was retired from that, and he was just working a networking sales type job. And then he found that same ad, and now we're friends. We work out. We're both like graduated out of the group, and we like work out sometimes, stay in touch.
He's got to be so excited about this season.
Oh yeah,
The Lions are killing it.
Yeah.
Maybe until the Vikings play him, and it'll be good.
I don't know if you guys ever stood next to an offensive lineman. Like I always thought like I was a bigger guy. And then you just look like a child. This man could pick you up and rock you, right?
My aunt married a defensive lineman. He played for Michigan, and then he played for the Houston Oilers. And I remember the first time he came on my parents' boat, he sat down and they called this dent in the boat the Jeff dent because he made a permanent dent in the boat's cushion.
This is fascinating to me, this group that you're a part of. So I picture myself super annoyed that I have to do an accountability call every single day. That would be enough to just have me be like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like the everyday thing, that is not a small thing, because you have, life, right? And is this 7 days a week, or do you guys give yourself like a grace period?
No, it's 7 days a week.
So
So it's a 3-hour commitment per day, because you're spending 2 hours. Like the workout is hour and a half to 2 hours. And then you have the reading, and then you have the journaling, then you have your call, and then you have meal prepping and planning and tracking your macros.
So I work out about 2 hours a day already.
Workout in air quotes,
Yeah.
which is Ted slowly walking around an indoor track talking to people.
I don't actually. No, we do it at the weights. 30 to 45 minutes of walking, and talking, and an hour and 15 minutes of working out.
Now, by the way, this is new news because up until for the last 3 years that we've been on this podcast, Ted has talked about, oh yeah, I go to the gym for 2 hours, and then I find out from a guy that goes to the gym
Marty
with
Cromwell.
him, totally threw Ted under the bus. He's basically throwing shade like, yeah, you work out, like in air quotes the other day. This is just
when
last
he's
week.
like, oh, you didn't show up this morning. And I'm like, whoo.
Yeah, anyway, so
Shots
now
fired,
I
shots
know what
fired,
Ted's workout routine
But
is.
on the flip side, like, yes, it was really demanding, but I lost 40 pounds in 4 months.
Yeah,
First of
that's
all,
hard to
got
argue
in
with.
incredible shape.
Yeah.
Ran like a 23-minute 5K.
What were you at weight-wise?
220.
Okay.
And I dropped down to like 185. I'd also put on muscle.
Yeah.
So we think about like what fat loss was during that time. But my biggest was like 270.
That's where I'm at right now. Is 270.
So I had lost
Yeah.
quite a bit and then hopped on this. But like I had never had the confidence, the focus, the clarity, the execution in my business. And so it's amazing. It's like when you put more on your plate, when you give out more energy, you get more energy. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I was doing more in my day than I am right now.
I'm curious of the collective group that was a part of this. How many dudes were there?
There were 30.
Or are there, I should say.
probably-
And was it all dudes?
It's all dudes. Yeah,
Okay.
it's Superhuman Fathers. It's
Okay.
like men centric. They're coming out with a woman's program similar, but this was all men. I would say there's probably 100 people in the program between phase 1 and phase 2. My phase 1 was like 30 people.
Okay.
What was cool was 30 people signed up for the Navy SEAL event. 8 of us showed up.
Oh, wow.
22 just chickened out.
Okay, here's why I'm asking you this. Of the people that have risen through the ranks in this program that you signed up for willingly, bizarrely, paid $5,000 for.
Yeah.
What? I'm kidding. This is really cool. I'm actually really interested in it. As a voyeur, did you find any commonalities with the people that you had? I know you rattled off a bunch of different professions, but intrinsically, was there something that you found as a common personality trait, something about them that tied you guys together as as somebody that was seeking more? Like what were they? What are the intangibles here that made people do this crazy thing?
I think there's like Jordan Peterson has a quote, and he says you can hand one man an axe and he'll cut down enough firewood to get his family through the winter. And you can hand another man that same axe and he won't stop chopping until he's cut down the whole forest. And I think the common thread was all of us men were the man that wants to cut down the whole forest.
Okay.
Because you weren't here because you wanted to be okay. You weren't here because you wanted to be average. You were here because you wanted to be the best father, the best husband. You wanted to excel in all ways, and that's why the program hit all things. You like the standard to get to phase 2 is to have a 6-pack. And it's one thing to be like a 22-year-old in college that runs track and has a 6-pack because your body's still metabolism like crazy, and be a 30, 40-year-old man with family, wife, kids, business, responsibilities, and have the discipline it takes to keep that level of physique. And so like they're just calling you to be just a higher echelon of man that's firing on more cylinders. And I had never felt better in my life than when I was dedicated to it. So I traveled. I went like 6 different trips in 6 weeks throughout October and beginning of November. I was just pretty much on a plane and traveling. And then December is obviously the holiday, so I kind of like chilled out a little bit. But I'm planning on signing up for an entire year because I did it for 4 months, and now it's like commit to an entire year and just see where my life goes. Because you just watch the results are just so exponential. It's incredible.
I think accountability, we've talked about this a little bit, Ted, on other podcasts, but it's really interesting that a lot of people who get into owning their own business or they want to be an entrepreneur, maybe they work in a corporate job or they're in a job they hate, a lot of them cite the reason that they want to do the solo path is because they just don't want somebody else in control of their time. And then the really high-performing ones that go that route end up being more attracted to accountability at some point because they need it. Yeah. So it's like what you need isn't what you want a lot of times with that. And I know that reporting to someone and accountability is not exactly the same thing, even though it's present in both.
Yeah.
But I just think that's really interesting because, I know personally, I don't like accountability in general. I don't like being accountable to somebody all the time because I want freedom to do whatever I want, but I need it at the same time, but I resist it. It's just this dichotomy because you want it, but you don't, you don't want it, but you need it. And then I don't know.
I feel the exact same way. And as we talked about off mic, like when I went to Job Corps, it was just extreme accountability in my day. And I just flourished. Well, I've been self-employed a decade, almost my entire adult life. I don't like being told what to do. I don't like having a boss. I'm my own. I like to be able to do my own thing, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you take that and put the guardrails on it, I mean, you just become a laser beam in your life. Because I think all of us, especially as high performers, like we know what we want to do every day. In our head, we know how many calls we want to make, how many deals we want to do, all the things in our life that we know we should be doing. But then you get out of bed and you automatically start negotiating against yourself. Well, I woke up late. Well, I don't feel the best. Well, I did this. Well, I had this win, so I don't need to do it. And you just start negotiating away against what your target is. And so when you have someone coming into the picture who's there to hold you to that fire, to hold you to what you said you were going to do, regardless of the circumstance, I mean, yeah, the results are they're exponential. And the confidence that comes with that is incredible.
I think that what you said is just something that whoever listened to us probably should replay that probably 2 or 3 or 4 times just to put it in your head. You know who you want to be, but you talk yourself out of not being that person.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say it much better than that. We all can reflect on that comment right there. I'm reflecting on it, and I know you are too. I mean, it's strong.
Yeah, I just made a note that says negotiating against yourself because everybody can relate to that. Every single person listening to this, and those that aren't, can relate to this because you do that every day. It's bargaining. Like you're bargaining with someone, and a lot of times it's yourself on why you should give yourself a break or take the easy route. It's never like you don't have this repeating voice in your head that's just like, hey, you should probably do another set, or you should go to the gym, or hey, fatty, lay off the mayo and cheese dip.
Do you really need this old fashioned at 9 a.m. during the podcast?
Yeah, and sometimes it's better just to shut those voices out, right, and have an old fashioned. Anyway, no, I'm kidding, but I just. Man, wouldn't it be great if you could just flip the switch on the evil Jiminy Cricket in your head and be like, hey, bro, can you just put some like positivity in my life? Like make me want to do the things that are good for me?
Right, yeah. Right. And this is what that did. And it's like I felt crazy right in that, stroking that $5,000 check. It came at really bad timing in my life. But I was like, I saw what this could do for me. And I was like, how do I put a price on that? Mm-hmm. If I get half of the results I think I'm going to get, this is the best money I've ever spent. And hands down, it was the best money I've probably ever spent in my life.
You're a believer.
A believer?
My daughter loves Justin Bieber right now. My 16-year-old, we were talking about something last night about different actors and shows and stuff that we like or don't like, and she brought up Justin Bieber, and I just like it's so. I don't. Is
he still a thing?
I don't think I'm allowed to say the word cringy. Apparently, because according to my daughters, because I'm
cringe?
50 now. Yeah, it's cringe. Oh, I can't even say that. I'm like aged out of being able to say that word at all. But I'm like, Justin Bieber, really? Because my daughter's normally into like, anime, manga, like K-pop bands, like not normal American stuff, right? She's always on the edge of whatever she's listening to. And now it's like I'm like, Justin Bieber? And she's just like, he's so dreamy. I go, oh my God, Avery, please don't say things like that out loud. And she goes, no, not now. I go, so you like his tattoos? And she's like, no, not at all. I like him when he was young. And
Don't
I'm like,
say that either.
This is weird. It was just weird. And then the whole like P. Diddy debacle that we're going through right now, anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this, but daughters.
Yeah. Whew. Hopefully our kids never say, oh, P. Diddy, he's dreamy.
Oh, my God. Jeez. No, thank you. Okay, let's talk about Job Corps. So we were just kind of exchanging pleasantries here before we hit record. And you brought up the fact that you grew up in Omaha, went to high school here, and went into the Job Corps. What is that, and why is that the path you went?
Yeah, I think I had a kind of abnormal entry into real estate and real estate investing. So I went to Job Corps when I was 19 years old. It's a place that teaches like vocational skills. With a lot of accountability. It's a government program. It's kind of like for kids that don't have a direction. Mm-hmm. So like I was not on a good path in high school. I went to jail. I got in a lot of trouble. I barely graduated.
What did you go to jail for?
I was selling drugs.
Really?
Yeah.
Anything good?
Of course.
Yeah.
And I was on a...
You can radio it out.
Yeah, I can edit it out.
I just,
mostly pot. Yeah. But and,
how much did you get caught with?
Ounce and a half.
Yeah.
In a scale, and at UNO. So I'm banned and barred from UNO.
Permanently,
but,
forever.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there, but so I was like,
I have no idea how much an ounce and a half is. I swear, I have no idea.
It was more back.
Like
then
if I
than
went
it
to
is
buy
now.
drugs from you, you could be like, oh yeah, this is a lot,
The way I
and then
took my
you just
fingers
go
on the
and
bag
be
and
like,
be like,
this
yeah,
is
we're
$400,000. I'm like, okay,
Deal.
like that's. I have no idea. Like,
I mean, nowadays you can't get in trouble for that. So how much trouble did you get in for that at the time?
The combination of what I had qualified for a felony.
Yeah.
I got
Because anything over an ounce is a felony back then.
and then you have scales in baggies and everything.
Intent to
else.
distribute.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I had like
you know a lot about this, Ted.
intent to distribute, and then I had a weapon on me.
Oh, okay.
And so I was looking at felonies, and I ended up with a misdemeanor.
Wow.
I got very lucky.
Good lawyer.
Yeah, good lawyer. Wasn't read my Miranda rights, and it gave me kind of a second chance on life. I didn't take that right away. I wasn't done getting in trouble, but then ended up in rehab for 30 days. I don't know how much of this we're going to cut out, but when I was 18.
That's your choice,
Yeah,
how much you
I mean,
want to cut,
I was 18
This is
years old,
interesting,
and I was in drug rehab, just graduated high school.
Hey, David Dodge, when we had him on,
Yeah.
he had a plane at the age of 20 years old and was flying pot around the country and then got busted by the FBI. And we talked about that, and then in the end, he's sober, and he's one of the top real estate wholesalers in the state of Missouri. So
That's amazing.
I think those early stories kind of make who you are.
They do, yeah. And so like when I graduated high school, I didn't know how to write a sentence, like the correct format. Like I was that far behind in school.
Where'd you go?
Why was this? I mean, if you don't mind.
No, I struggled very early on in school. I'm dyslexic and no one knew. I have ADHD, so like I didn't know I was dyslexic till I was 23 years old. And then I just kind of fell behind in the school system and just kind of became that troublemaker kid. And like I was so far behind and had so many other things holding, they didn't even realize I was dyslexic. You know what I mean? And so I didn't take finals as a senior in high school. They said if you don't, they just like the principal called me and he was like, don't come to school this week. If you don't come to school for finals, you'll graduate. Because if you show up, you will hurt everyone else's chances to go to college. And it's like I just didn't take finals. Yeah.
Is that because of the curve? Or what? Like you will hurt everyone else's chances because you're a distraction?
Yeah, because like I'm such a distraction and such an issue in class. Like, don't even show up.
And then they bribed you with a diploma.
Yeah. And so I graduated. I never took my finals as a senior. And they said just don't show up. And
I am never letting my daughters listen to this podcast.
I was just thinking the same thing.
But yeah, and then so I got my life on track. I was like 19 years old. And
what was the pivotal moment? Was it getting busted?
No,
but wait, there's more.
No, I went through a lot. So like in high school, I witnessed a murder, and like I got subpoenaed to like testify for that. And that just put me in like a really dark place. And then after I got out of jail, I got arrested 3 times within 24 hours. And I was just like really erratic, I was kind of in a really dark place. And it served as a wake-up call for me that like the path I was going down was so unsustainable. And if I continue on that path, there would not be much left in my journey. You know what I mean? It kind of served as a wake-up call. And so I got clean, and then I was completely sober for 5 years, from the age of 19 to 24, like where most people are like partying and discovering themselves. I was just stone cold sober and focused on my career. And so it really helped me kind of get ahead in a lot of ways. Like I said, I went to Job Corps when I was 19, and even at that age, I was like, I'm going to be a real estate investor. Like when I got clean, I was like, I'm going to be a real estate investor.
So you got right into real estate right at that time?
I had to go to Job Corps first, but like I went and become a maintenance tech because in my head I was like, I'm going to be able to work on my own property someday if I have these skills. Like that's why I did it. And so I got out of there. I picked up a blue collar job. I had a horrible employment record beforehand, so it was really tough to get a job out of Job Corps. And so I was like cleaning carpet, doing flood extraction, mold restoration, nasty, filthy work, urine, blood, mold, like all the things, just nasty. And I was doing like 60, 70, 8-hour weeks. And it was just super, super time. It was my life was putting in those hours. And then at night, I went to night school. And so it took me 2 years. So real estate should take you 90 days. It took me 2 years to pass the real estate test because I had no study skills. I was dyslexic and still didn't even know it. I had no school like success experience. It's like studying for tests, all that type of stuff. So I took all the classes at night. So I like work a 12-hour day, go to 4 hours of night school, 4 days a week. And I did that for 90 days, passed all the classes, and then failed the test like 3 or 4 times, and then I was out of time before my peak season picked up at my day job. So then I had to do an entire another year of physical labor and then retake all the classes and keep testing. So I think it was my 6th or 7th attempt before I actually passed the real estate test. I refused to quit.
Looking back on your childhood, and you see the path that you kind of took in your teens, it sounds like. Were there things that happened to you, or like did it have anything to do with your parents on the path that you were on at all, or do you take that as your own responsibility for hanging out with the wrong people? Like, I'm just curious, like, you know what I mean? I would have never ever, like, if you would have given me 1,000 guesses, you would not have shown up on the radar of anybody I would have guessed to have that type of an upbringing.
I appreciate that, and I've tried
because you're articulate, well-spoken. You seem well-educated. Like, you know your stuff. You're a professional guy. You take fitness seriously. I mean, all the stuff.
And thank you. It was a ton. I mean, I read a self-development book a month for 3 years when I was from 22 to 25. So like I just was so focused on reinventing who I was because I was so unhappy with who I had become. I think, it's a blend. I think as an adult, like, it's easier just to take accountability for your own actions and realize that like your parents did the best that they could. Yeah. But like as a child at that point, I had a lot of like, conflict with my father, issues with my father and some parts of my childhood that were difficult, and they just kind of bled over into school. And then I'm an issue at school, and then that bled over into like falling behind in school, which then it all just kind of snowballed. So I got to about, I think I was an 8th grader, and I was like, I've given up. Like, I'm done with school. In 8th grade, I was like, I'm just
checked out.
I'm checked out. Like, I can't fail if I don't try. And that was my attitude.
The sad thing about kids, and I'm going to throw even teenagers into that category, but the sad thing about kids is you can see from afar what is happening with them and the choices that they make a lot of times, and especially when you're a parent, like you understand the influence of kids and bullying and just bad influences, and like having that one friend that's doing risky behavior and that they want to be cool and they desperately just need somebody else's approval or acceptance, so they do those things even though that's not really who they are. You can see all those things unfolding in front of you, right? Yeah. No kid ever sets out with a strategy of like, I'm going to do this because I'm not getting either the attention I need at home or I'm getting bullied at school. It's not a decision they're making. It's a reaction to a stimulus they have. And it's unfortunately, people being complex and other, like you mentioned, you struggled with ADHD and you struggled with dyslexia. So you had kind of some learning impairments. I wouldn't call it disabilities, but like you had some things that were huge disadvantages to you. And then, you apply a multitude of other pressures that life throws at you. You can just make decisions that end up being terrible for you because it's the cumulative effect of them over time, not just the one, right? Mm-hmm. So like, it's the equivalent of what do they say? You're 1 degree off of something, and you magnify that over whatever it is, 1,000 miles, and the difference is astonishing. It's like thousands of square miles that you're off from compared to somebody else. Yeah. But I don't know, man. I wanted to kind of like peel that back a little bit and just understand what was driving the behavior.
Yeah, and I hope I answered it well enough and not too vague. And also I have to say, like, I wouldn't be where I am without my mother, too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have so much credit to give for how much she has poured into me in those hard times, in the good times, and has always supported me. She actually became a realtor when I was in high school. And she was a realtor for a couple years and then went back into nursing. So it's like she had been a nurse my entire childhood. She was working a job in a night school, or she was, becoming a realtor. And so there's probably a 4-year span where she was a realtor in my life, maybe 5. And that's what opened my eyes to what was possible. Because like when you're working a W-2 job and everyone is W-2, everyone equates time, like money, to hours of time. Mm-hmm. And like when you make $25 an hour or $30 an hour and you look at buying things, your distance between the achievability of that is measured in your dollars per hour, mm-hmm. right? And so when you're just surrounded by everyone in your life is W-2, is working hourly, mm-hmm. these things that we do seem impossible, right? And so it was my mom when I was in high school, even though I was getting in so much trouble, and when she became a realtor, it changed how she thought, because now all of a sudden she's in an unlimited earning type role, mm-hmm. reading self-development books, getting connected with real estate investors, with people who own businesses, like that flip from entrepreneurial from W-2. And that really impacted my life as I was putting my own life back together. 19 years old, going like, okay, how do I go from rock bottom, unemployable, uneducated, nothing to where I want to go in my life? And if it hadn't been for my mother who opened that door and showed me what was possible, I probably never would have found real estate, which has absolutely changed my life. So ironically, her and I never were a team. We tried to flip one house together. It was a disaster. And we never worked together or anything like that. But without her, I don't think I ever would have discovered. I mean, you never know what a future that you didn't live holds. But I on one hand, you're like, was it part of your childhood that created your situation? Well, yeah, it was. But also without my parents, I wouldn't be where I am today either. And I want to make sure I address that.
Yeah.
There were some nuggets in there, but the dollars per hour really hits home.
Yeah.
All right, Neil, tell us about, you teased the whole Job Corps and the maintenance tech pathway to investing in real estate or getting involved in real estate. And you painted the picture of your mom being a hustler, go-getter, real estate agent when you were in high school. What was your first pathway into the real estate sector?
From 19 years old, I wanted to flip houses. Mm-hmm. And so I flipped my first house at 23, 22, super young.
Were you a real estate agent by this time?
Yeah, I got my real estate license at 22 years old.
Okay.
And that was kind of interesting because I would lose clients because they would respond to my text messages and just say, you don't have good enough grammar to be my realtor.
You're kidding.
It would say, if this
Ouch.
is how you type, you can't type our contract. And it was such a stab, and because I had worked so hard to get that real estate license, and I'd spent 2 years of my life working physical labor, overtime, failing night school over and over. Then I got the license and I passed, and they're like, still not good enough.
ChatGPT would have been great for you
Oh
guys.
yeah. Well, honestly, it was Grammarly.
Yeah.
I got Grammarly, the Google app that like restructures your sentences, and it taught me correct grammar and sentence structure and paragraph structure, and it was a really humbling experience. And my sister, luckily, is also like a
Grammar Nazi.
I was going to say, can I say Nazi? Yeah, grammar Nazi. And so all throughout my career, I'd be like, hey, can you read this really big email? Hey, how is this structured? How, and just kind of leaning on the people around me to shore up that weakness until I felt confident. And it took years. But
I use my wife for that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a built-in grammar Nazi in your house.
She's a school teacher, and so I just go to her. I'm like, oh, hey, babe, I'm gonna send this out to a client. Can you proof this if it was really important? She's like, I always regretted it after I did it because she went through just like red check.
Yeah, or like circle something with a question mark, like really, or like all the smart ass.
Oh yeah,
answers,
she
like,
circles it. She's like, what did you really mean here? And then she'd write like all these notes. I'm like, babe, can you just rewrite it? I mean, like, just obviously this is gonna be too much work. It'd be a lot easier for both of us if you just fixed it.
you know what I'm trying to say here. You know what I mean.
Ted's like, can I just type some emojis and then you just make these into words? Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And so, like I said, as soon as I got my real estate license, I had to pick up a side gig, and so I worked in my uncle owns a catering company in town, Eddie's Catering. Thank God for them. And I'd clock in at 5 a.m. and cut raw chicken and wash dishes till 10 a.m. I would go home and shower and then sell real estate. So I had to have like a side gig as I started my real estate career for the first 2 years before I could afford to do my job.
And you were
I could like make enough money.
And you were working with Jeff Cohen, right?
Yes.
And you told me, if I remember right, you told me that he definitely kind of played a mentor role for you in those early years. Is that correct?
He absolutely did.
Yeah.
I think he saw me as like a young kid who, because I obviously I wanted it. Because I'd come through so much at that point and so much struggle and hurdles just to get in the door that he was like, this kid's a grinder. Like, this kid wants this. And so it was a cool experience. I'd be like 23 years old and he'd like pick me up in his Porsche Panamera and we'd like go out and do cookies and stuff. And it was just like, as a kid, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever experienced. I say a kid, but I was like 23.
He wasn't much older though.
He was like 5-6 years. So I mean, I think he was 30, so something like that. And so he was just old enough, but I learned so much from him. Like I joined that real estate team and I made nothing as a realtor on the splits, like, because I was just like, it was a long time ago, but like I was a part of someone else's team on his team, and there were so many hands in the pot that I was making almost like, it was terrible, but it was like paying for education. Because the amount I learned about systems, processes, running a team, because I've always wanted to be more than a realtor.
Just really good at that.
Yeah, and just like the big picture of leverage and creation and the way he would monetize things and the stuff that he was doing outside of what everyone saw. It was just really fascinating. And so it was definitely instrumental in my career to see real estate done such a different way than just like I'm a realtor putting signs in the yard, calling my friends and family. Like, it was such a different type of business that he was running and how he operated that it was really powerful to me. And he always said something to me that stuck to me personally. And I don't know if people are going to like this, but he would say, if you've been in real estate for 8 years and you're still just selling real estate, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And he said it.
What did he mean by that?
He meant that real estate is a fantastic springboard to accelerate yourself into entrepreneurship. But real estate, in my opinion, is also like a golden handcuff, because you can do well. You can make a lot of money at the sacrifice of all of your free time. So if you're willing to give up all your time, your nights, your weekends, your holidays, Mother's Day, your kid's birthday party, the football game, the date night with your wife, you can make a lot of money in real estate. If you're not willing to give those things up, it's going to be a tough go. And so some people get stuck in doing that forever. And I never had that mentality. I thought because I was 25 years old and I sold 56 units in real estate. So it was a pretty good year for a 25-year-old kid.
That's really stout.
So like
that's like a $22 million year roughly.
Ironically, it was $11 million because I was just selling a lot of $100,000 houses.
Okay.
So I was hustling, but I mean, I was 25 making $250,000 a year, and so like for a 25-year-old kid, I was doing just fine.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, it was dangerous. Well, I just dumped it all into real estate. And so I started flipping houses at 23. And, but yeah, back to that, I always knew that like real estate was going to be where I was going to be able to generate an outsized return on my time. but it wasn't what I wanted to be doing until I was 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the ability to level up into something a little bit different.
Okay, let's pro-con. You mentioned flipping.
Yep.
There's an age-old debate out there. Should I or should I not get my real estate license if I'm going to make a business out of flipping houses? What say you?
Okay, so that's a great question. I get asked this all the time. I think absolutely yes.
Okay.
Because like flipping houses is such a it's such a margin game.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can make 2-3% buying something on market, if I can save 2 or 3% selling something, those add up quickly. Because if you're in Omaha, Nebraska, I think us flippers typically look for about a $30,000 net.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you do better, but like if I see 30, I'll do the deal. You know what I mean?
I think 20 is actually more the number that I see, at least from the people I work with.
Really?
Yeah.
So I lose a lot though because I won't.
30 should be a good goal.
Yeah. If I see 20, I don't.
30's mine.
Yeah.
Is it?
If I see 20, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Because I'm one mistake away from
Yep.
making 10, and then once I make 10 over 90 days, my time was so wasted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That like maybe the deal made money, but my return on my time lost money
I
compared
agree.
to where it should be. And so like if we don't see 30, we don't buy. And so then it's like, okay, so if that's $30,000 and you're selling a house at $300,000 and half that commission you're saving is 3%, yeah, it's 3% of the purchase price, but it's 30% of your profit margin.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, it's a big deal. So, like, when we do things like we can do the roofing in-house. And so, like, if we get an insurance claim when we buy the house, we do the roof in-house and we profit on that. When we do that, we may make 25% more on that flip just by having the insurance claim assigned over to us and doing the roof in-house based on what insurance pays out versus what cost contract out accrue. And so it's like, okay, now you're saving 3% over here on real estate fees, which is 30% of the net. You made another 25% by doing the roof and house, and all of a sudden you can make much more on the deal than that's on the paper, or make those slimmer deals that typically we would turn away from profitable. So yeah, I absolutely think so. And I get asked all the time by realtors, should I start flipping houses? And flipping houses.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and
I always hear from flippers, should I get my real estate license?
Yeah, realtors like, Neil, like it looks sexy. Like, should I flip houses? And I'm like, I'm biased because I've flipped about 60 houses in my career. We're going into 2025 with 4. So I think our goal is probably about 20 next year. Mm-hmm. Typically we do about 15. We're ready to crank it up a little bit. Me and my partner both have.
Who's your partner in this?
Dalton Dagus.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's incredible. And both.
Is he local?
Yep, he's local
Okay.
here. He's
Beard Bros.
Beard Bros. Yeah, he's like 28 now, so he's a little bit younger. I just tell people he's me, just better in every way by a little bit.
It's a good partner then.
Yeah, just a little bit more organized, a little bit more this, a little bit more disciplined, a little bit just all around.
What's his role in the partnership?
Yeah.
I want to get back to
Yeah,
where you're
yeah.
going with that, but what's his role in that partnership, and what's your role in the partnership?
And it took us a couple years to define, because when we started this, we were just like 2 kids. And like I was 25, 26, he was 23. And it's like there was like mornings where like they're at like 4 a.m. on listing day, like hanging fans up and properties together, like getting it done. But now how we have it set up, because him and I both have full-time careers, and we flip 15 to 20 houses a year
It's pretty stout.
on the side of that. Mm-hmm. And our careers are good enough to want us to keep our career and keep this as kind of a secondary thing, just for perspective. But how we do it is we have our defined roles. And so we know what the other person is responsible for, and we can count on the other person to pull their weight. So I handle all of our marketing, acquisitions. I'm the guy making the calls, going on the appointments, winning the deal. I'm a lender. So then I handle all the bank financing, insurance, getting it closed, working with the CPA. But then as soon as we buy that house, I never see it again. Once we own the property, Neil never goes back. Mm-hmm. And so I don't.
How do you feel about that?
It's the best thing. It's amazing. It's amazing. So
How does he feel about it?
Well, it's a good deal because he runs our crew.
He doesn't want to deal with any of the crap that you have to deal with.
Yep.
And you're like, this is easy for me. I don't want to deal with any of the stuff you're handling.
And honestly, there's 2 pieces of it.
Those are the best.
There's no amount, like I can make more money behind my desk with a phone, a computer, and a pen than I can do anywhere else in the world. And so if he has to go run all these appointments, it's pulling him away from his day job. And if I have to go run and check on crews, and make sure people are on track is pulling me away from my day job. So we kind of split that time because I'm the one running all these appointments, getting out of my desk. He's the one checking on the crews, getting out of his. So we're both sacrificing that time.
Don't you find it ironic that you're the guy that went to Job Corps to learn a maintenance tech job, and now you're like, oh yeah, I just sit behind a desk all day while he does all the.
It's hard for me.
He does all the manual labor.
Yeah, it's ironic because like I'm up, like I want to be the guy that's up and around, but it's a waste of time to drive around all day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And when I built my flipping business, it was never built on my ability to swing a hammer. It's always been how we hire it out.
That's exactly how my last partnership was supposed to look. Yeah. And now I'm doing both sides.
Right. And that the beautiful thing is him and I are at a point like skill set wise, financially, banking connection wise, where we don't need each other.
Yeah.
I could do this without him just fine. He could do it without me probably better than I could do. He's just a little bit better than me in every way. So if I do 10 deals on my own, he'd probably do 11, right? But we can both do this independently, but it's one of those things where 1 + 1 = 11.
That's what makes a good partnership,
together.
though, because you guys lift each other up, but you also not 100% relying on the other one either. Successful partnerships I like to break down because I feel like it's either you have the book nerd and you have the social one, which that seems to work really well. Or you have somebody that both can handle the whole entire project themselves and they know it and they're financially responsible enough to handle it. But if you guys can come together and like a real partnership and say, hey, these are defined roles and figure it out, then you're going to win also. So
yeah. You know, I made this post a little while back. It was not that long ago actually, but I was talking about kind of in the vein of partnerships where when you're early on, so I still consider you said you're 31. So, you know, I got 20 years on you almost. And when I look at over the years who I have surrounded myself with, and I think back to when I was in my 20s, I remember there being signs of people that were going to be high potential, and they had they had the chance to be moonshots.
Yes.
I'm making an analogy here with regard to companies versus people, and they kind of go hand in hand a lot of times. So, you know, crypto and that whole advent of the cryptocurrency and tokenization of society basically now has kind of like shined a light on tokenization, but also like the ability for things to go from 0 to 1 million.
Yeah.
And I look at people that way now, because you can see who the shining stars are eventually going to be. Not every time. There's some that life gets in the way, or they make bad decisions that derail progress, or they get involved with, you know, different, you know, substances or things that get in the way of their high potential. Mm-hmm. But I really think, man, if you can dial into and really be cognizant of who's around you that has good habits, they're highly motivated, and they make intelligent decisions, those are the ones that you need to surround yourself with, partner with, latch onto, because those are the ones that are going to take you places.
Yes.
And the ones that are comfortable, have the same habits, same routines, don't challenge you. They don't challenge the status quo. Anybody that's higher than them in whatever, you know, social or economic peg that they criticize, that's when you know you're around the wrong people, is when it's the crabs in the bucket theory, right? So, you know, for those of you who are not familiar, it's like you get a bunch of crabs in a bucket. The minute one starts to figure out how to climb to the top and get out, the rest of them pull them all the way back down. And so generally, you know, this is a huge generalization here, but social media makes it easy because you can see what the masses are commenting on and what their point of view is. So generally people, when you are at the same level or below somebody else, people will root for you. They want you to be successful. They want your business to like do well. The minute you pass them, generally people have a hard time reconciling that with their own life, because they look in the mirror and they say, then they start picking apart what you're doing. We're like, well, yeah, it must be nice you had a rich uncle, or must be nice you had this advantage that I didn't, or whatever. The whole must be nice, like, you know, thing keeps getting recited about people that surpass them. Mm-hmm. And that is a dangerous trap to get into if you're not able to get above the fray and look at what's actually happening. with people around you. And I don't know. I just am a huge believer in investing in relationships, and you have to make time for the people that further your potential, further your drive, hold you accountable for shit talking that you're doing and you never follow through on. So kudos to you, man, for like, and I'm tying this back to everything you were talking about earlier. It's like the whole fitness brigade that you've gone through here in the last several months, and committing to daily accountability calls and flying to California to do Navy SEAL training. Like, not many people do that shit. So that's hard. And I think it's cool that you found your own, like, kind of tribe, for lack of a better term, of people that want better and want more, and it can work just the opposite of that.
It absolutely can. Like, when you said that, I look at, like, my core friend group. There's 4 of us. None of us drink anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't all come together and say, we're going to quit together. It's just like we all realize, like, wow, our lives are way better when we don't. We all work out. We all commit to certain disciplines. And we have all found that this is the activities we do that put our life on a higher frequency, that we just elevate ourselves on. And so we're all kind of on this journey together, and we hold each other accountable. And when we slip up, we call the other person out. And when someone's slacking, we see what's going on. It's such a healthy group that's doing exactly what you're saying, is we're all going in the same direction. But to tie it back into that partnership, me and him have just been through, I think, thick and thin. I mean, flipping's a stressful business, and to have someone in the trenches you can count on,
priceless.
I mean, you can't put a price on it, right? And it's amazing because, like, your life has cycles, and there's ups and there's downs, and it's a partnership to where, like, when my life's been in a down cycle, he's been there to pick up the slack. He has a brand new baby, he's stretched thin, I'm picking up the slack, and you have that because you both know you're in it for the long haul, you know? One technical piece of advice I'd give, if you're in a partnership, which there's always a thing, right? It depends on how you look at your time and how you look at what you should be doing. But for me, that partnership model makes more sense. Whoever's handling the cruise needs to be handling the accounting. That may seem like a really basic concept, but typically I think people get that wrong, because typically you have, like, the numbers guy and the construction guy. Well, the construction guy is good at construction, but he's not good at the books. That's why he has the numbers guy. Well, the numbers guy doesn't know what property that box of nails was for, where that drywall went, why we gave Jose $300 extra, where this went, where that went. And so that division, it seems like a simple thing. I think most partnerships get it wrong, and they put all the bookkeeping on the numbers guy, and then the contractor doesn't do it. Well,
or they do a terrible job of explaining it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, we have Excel sheets. Like, I can go through 60 flips and tell you exactly what we made, how much we spent on taxes, insurance, material, labor. Like, everything we've ever done is documented, and it's Excel, and it's tracked. And that's been a huge part of our success, because, like, we know our numbers. And if it was my job to do that and try to figure out who went to what property for why that he's scheduling, it would have been impossible.
I've never heard anybody say that, to be honest with you. I never thought about it either.
It just makes a ton of sense.
It is a pain in the butt. I remember in this last partnership I had, I aggressively, like, hey, I created a spreadsheet. I've already put in all the numbers from our accounting books. You need to fill it out as you go, because I don't know what you're spending. And I could not get him to do the numbers, and it made it very difficult.
And then he might be a good contractor, but then he may not be the right business partner. You know?
Yeah, that's well said. That one doesn't equal the other.
Yeah.
Necessarily. This is such good stuff. Okay, when I look at you right now, you have different categories of businesses that you're involved in. You have the mortgage world, you have flipping, you have rental properties and their ownership / management, and you have what's my last one here? There's something else. Oh, agent, rentals, flipping, mortgage. Those are 4 very labor-intensive businesses to pay attention to.
Yes.
How do you decide, A, why are you doing all 4? And B, do you think that you are doing any of the 4 a disservice by not focusing more?
That is such a great question and a daily struggle, and something that I'm working through. So first, I'll go back to, like, when realtors ask me if they should flip houses, I tell them no, because you don't necessarily need 2 active income earning pathways, right? So, like, you have, like, And my buddy Wyatt Simons, he says it all the time. You have like offense and defense financially. It's like how you save, how you invest, and then how you make money. You really only need one solid offensive play. So like if you're a realtor, sell as many houses as you can sell. If you're going to be a flipper, flip as many houses as you can flip, right? But as soon like I did 56 units in real estate, and then my flipping business started to ramp, and then my real estate business dropped to 30 units.
Yep.
So did I do my real estate business a disservice by flipping houses? I absolutely did. Now for me, I go, well, I've already paid the cost of tuition. I've already made my hard knocks and learned how to, we've done 60 of them. So now it's too late to just be like, I'm going to hang that up for now. But if I could go back in time, ironically, I would have made more money faster with more security if I had never flipped a house and then just stayed in my lane of real estate while I was a realtor. And so that I look back and go, man, I did 56. I would have done 70, 90, 100 if I had hired and leveraged around myself at that time in that business, opposed to taking that money, put it into a distraction, which was flipping houses. Because so often I'd flip that house, especially when you're getting started, you don't win. Your first couple flips, you're not winning. You know what I mean? You may have a good one, but you're going to lose a lot too, right? There's a lot of hard lessons.
You're still putting systems together.
You're still learning. You still get the oopsies. Like it takes a while, right? It takes longer. So it's like, great, I made 10 grand over 6 months.
Yeah.
What if I had put all of those hours into my real estate business, right? And so I absolutely agree that, like, for anyone listening to this, try to maintain one high, like, attention, high earning activity, I think is the key. So like now for me, my flipping business, it's like a part-time job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I have a lot of part-time jobs. This is also my issue. So like with the real estate side, I am a licensed realtor. I don't sell any houses. I'm a lender. That's my day job. So I'm a branch manager over at Responsive Mortgage, and that's where I spend my time is in the lending channel. So when real estate deals, like when someone calls me to buy or sell their house, I have a realtor that I give it to, and I take a commission. So I just take a referral fee. And so it allows me to hold that license and still monetize it, but no time. Does that make sense? Because I'm just referring it out. And then really my day is spent between the two different lending businesses, between like mortgage lending for my clients and kind of the dark web of lending like you talked about, which it's the private banking investment space for real estate investors. It was just being an investor and being a mortgage guy. I was getting so much business that I couldn't service. People would always kind of be like, where do you go to flip houses and buy rentals and do the things that I had done? People come to me for, and I didn't have the right outlet for them. And so I flew around the country this year, met with different like investment banks, private investment funds, hedge funds, all these different players in the space to bring back relationships here. And now, like, we joke and call it the dark web of lending, but like our DSCR loans, I'm giving bank rates with essentially no docs and a soft pull of credit on 30-year terms. And so like for your average investor, it's like, it's different than that commercial space, but it's not worse. Essentially, you can come to me, I can put anything you own on a 30-year fixed note, and I can give you the same rate your bank can give you. And so it's very, very competitive.
Do you mind if can we dig into that? Like what is that? What is that?
Yeah.
Like how is that possible even?
Yeah. And so with that, I'm sure you've heard of DSCR loans, debt service coverage ratio.
Yeah. Would you mind kind of explaining what that looks like?
And so what's interesting about the space, if you ever look into they call it debt service coverage ratio. So instead of qualifying you as a buyer, it's like me, Neil Galas, I got laughed out of banks for years. I was this 23-year-old kid that had a business plan that would walk into the bank and say, I need to borrow your money to go start this. And they'd laugh me out of there. No one took me seriously because they wanted years of experience, because they wanted net worth, because they wanted...
How am I getting my experience if you won't give me my shot?
Yeah, and so and then people end up in like the hard money space because they can't, the mortgage doesn't have a solution for them. Commercial bank won't touch them yet. And they're in this kind of ambiguous space. And so that's the space that I wanted to kind of niche down on because I was that person who had to borrow money at 18% to start flipping houses. I was that person who had the dream and just had to figure it out. And so, when it comes to like those 30-year loans, we aren't qualifying the individual from their income. We're qualifying the quality of the asset. And so based on the rent to payment ratio, will depend, how high you will go on the loan. But a lot of the times it's like 80% for a purchase, so 20% down, and it's a 30-year fixed note. It's not a 520. So your average commercial loan, especially you buy a 100-year-old house or 80-year-old house, is a 5-year loan on a 20-year payment schedule. The amortization.
So
right?
A typical commercial loan, you go to anywhere
commercial.
in your local area, you're probably going to find that type of an offer.
And now once you get, I think, either higher quality property or better banking relationships, they do switch it to like a 525. Right? I mean, you start you guys
get longer amortization
and that
period.
helps a lot. Yeah. But what we're offering is true 30-year fixed debt, no balloon, 30-year fixed, and it's tough to quote rates, but right now we're right at where commercial banks are, so low to mid sevens.
Okay.
Which is so you go to your commercial bank, you're in that same spot, except we're doing it on a 30-year. So your cash flow is like 30. I mean, your payment's 30% less.
Okay. So DSCR, typically they're looking at a ratio that's going to cover. So debt service coverage ratio. Can you cover your monthly debt payment, and can you also cover the expenses that are associated with running a rental property? A lot of times banks look at 1.25. So your property has to kick off 1.25, and that basically equal 1.25 to 1. So you have to have 25% more income than you do debt, or than you do expenses and debt.
Yes,
that's how they look at it.
Your rent has to be 25% higher than your PITI.
Thank you.
Principal,
Much
interest,
better.
taxes, insurance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what you're talking about, is that a DSCR product then? A 30-year
Yes.
DSCR? So is the move then somebody buys it however they buy it, and then they refi into a DSCR product like you're talking about?
And I think in this market, it gives investors significantly more cash flow, being on that 30-year and still being able to do that cash out. Plus, I don't need your tax returns. I don't need your W-2s. And for a lot of self-employed, you come to me for a mortgage and you make $1 million a year, but you pay taxes on $30,000, you can't get the mortgage loan, right? And so it allows you to get that 30-year debt, which you typically only get through a mortgage, without the same qualifications of the individual, because we're qualifying the asset. But then, go on.
No, I have a ton of questions. But all right, let's say I buy a property, I buy it on a line of credit, or I get hard money, and then I want to refinance out of it, keep it as a rental. So you can do a single family up to
20 units.
Okay. So 20 units, and then you as you're the originator on this, is that right?
Yep.
So you originate the loan. You say, okay, the asset needs to support this. So whether it's a single family, 20 unit, whatever it is, somewhere in between, the monthly income has to be. What's an easy calculation? Let's say I'm Joe Schmo, and I'm buying a rental property, and I'm like, oh man, I have this hard money loan. I really need to refi out of it. What calculation can I quickly do to determine whether or not a DSCR loan is going to be right for me?
Well, so I think I almost would frame it a little bit differently.
Yeah,
because
please.
there are I have no ratio options.
Okay.
So it can negatively cash flow, and we'll throw it on a 30-year. That doesn't mean it's a good investment for the consumer.
Right.
I think most the more preferable term DSCR loans start at a 1.05 ratio.
Wow.
So 5% over, and I'm able to go to 75% on a cash out, 80% leverage on a purchase. So that's pretty levered up compared to your.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, as an investor, you really want to see in a single family 15% overage, 1.15. In multifamily commercial size, 5+, you know how much it changes.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a guy about this because he has 20 single families, and I was watching him overpay on 5-plex, 2 of them, and he's like, you don't get it. I'm gonna say, no, single family is easy. Multifamily is a whole different ball game. He's running a 10-plex at a 10% expense ratio in his calculation. Yeah, I see your eyes right there, which should be 40.
Yes.
Part of town,
Yes.
maybe 45, 50.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm looking at his numbers. I'm saying, I can give you this loan. You're going to lose $5,000 a month on this deal. Are you sure you want to do it? And so there's definitely can the loan be done at a low DSCR ratio? Absolutely. Is it the right investment for a borrower? No. I think where the bank standards are, where your commercial bank's going to want a 1.20 typically.
Yeah.
So
1.25.
And that's pretty standard. If you're buying multifamily, that's where I think you'll be able to realize actual profit. You get below that, I think your expense ratios are going to come into play and really affect. Now, sometimes people say, like, I don't care what it looks like now. I know that I'm going to turn this into, higher, Class A units. I'm going to do X. I'm going to do Y. And sometimes, like, we're investors, so like what we buy isn't what it's going to be when it's done.
You're betting on the pro forma.
Yeah, it's like as an investor, you do that, which is also why our DSCR ratios will be more forgiving. Not so we can give people bad debt, right? But so that you have the opportunity to buy that, even though it may not have the best numbers right now, because you have a plan to fix it up.
Okay, how can you do this when other people aren't offering this? I don't mean what's the secret sauce, but like, what's the secret sauce? Like, what's the trick here?
Yeah.
Why is this not being offered elsewhere? 30-year fixed options at like mid sevens on on a spread on a 30-year fixed. Like, why is this not everywhere?
Is there a huge penalty if you pay off early?
There can be, and so you can select a prepayment penalty between none and 5 years. I typically quote at a 3-year prepayment penalty. So when you hear me talk numbers, I'm kind of like right in the middle, because when I look at the market, I think that's fair. Like to commit to a loan for 36 months. If rates come down 1 point and then you turn around and refinance right away, when you look at like cost of doing that refinance, it doesn't really make sense to do anyway. So I feel like I quoted a 3-year prepayment because I feel like that still gives the investor enough flexibility down the road with just like, because who knows what the next 3 years look like. You know what I mean? So if it cash flows
we
right
have
now,
no idea. Like this could be wildly different.
Yeah, and ideally you're buying it and it cash flows now. So you have to wait 3 years to get to a different rate. That's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? So, but really the secret sauce is I made it my effort this year to go build those relationships. So anyone who saw me on social media in November was like, Neil's traveling the country. I called it my little world tour. I was in like 6 different locations in 6 weeks. But a lot of those I was meeting with private banks. I was meeting with groups of these individuals. I was getting in the right rooms with the right people to try to come here and offer these types of products. Other people in our market do it. I think my competitive advantage is A, I'm an investor that lives and breathes it on the front line, and B, I'm a mortgage originator. I know guidelines. And so our ability to like execute on deadlines, efficiency, the document collection, the accuracy, I think is a step above because of the background that we come into it with. So yeah, that's that. There's not really a secret sauce to it. It's just being able to find those connections. But I mean, it's a huge opportunity for, you have a 6-plex, an 8-plex. It's an old building. You're stuck on a 20-year right now. We can put that on a 30-year. Same bank rates. And so like you're unlocking of cash flow is very significant.
Are these loans assumable?
No, you wouldn't be able to assume those.
Okay.
So
I mean, it's good to know.
Yeah. I'm gonna check. I haven't checked, but I'm just gonna, for the sake of the podcast, I'm gonna say no.
Ted's like, you're like, hey, here's $100. You slide it over the table. Ted's like, slides it back to you. How about $200?
Yeah. And so then the other piece of the puzzle was the flipper, right?
Yeah.
How do you help the flipper? And so we rolled out, if you have experience, as little as 10% down, and we fund the construction. So you come to us, you put 10% down of the entire project. So you bought it for 90 and it needs 60. You're in it for $150,000 between purchase price and construction. We're going to ask you for a $15,000 down payment. Okay. 10% of that total cost, and then we will fund the rest. And I mean, those rates are sub 11. They're typically like 9.9 and maybe 11.75, which I think is
with
fair.
Points on top of that or not?
We do charge points.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's how we get paid.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of that rate spread, and see if you can get into that lower rate environment with 10% down. And we can do it and remove the seasoning requirement. So as soon as it's done, we can refinance it right into a 30-year note.
What's a typical amount of points that you charge?
It's like asking a realtor his commission. But
what's a range?
Typically, it's like 2 points.
Okay.
Is what we look to make, because everything else is made by the lender on the back end or the partner, as far as like the interest stuff.
Now
like that.
on those, do you originate them and then sell them to do you sell them to a secondary market of hard money lenders so they buy the notes, or do you keep them in house and service them?
We're moving towards like the more of that in-house piece. So we actually just rolled out hard money last month. So that's 0% down, no credit check, essentially 100% financing for the purchase and the construction. So if you buy a house for the same scenario, 90 plus that 60,000, you're in it for 150. we'll loan up to 70% of the after repair value. So as long as your purchase price and your construction are below 70% of that ARV, we'll lend on it. And of that, it's 13% and 2 points, which I think makes us very, very competitive in our market. That's Nebraska specific. Everything else we're doing is nationwide as far as like the fix and flips, DSCR. There's a couple exceptions, but like 46 states, something like that, I can do those other types of loans in. But the hard money's Nebraska specific. But I'm actually, we're capital partners in that. And so when we do that deal, we're participating with our own money and we're investing in that project. So it's my responsibility to run the comps to make sure it's a good, viable deal, which I think is also a huge benefit to the end buyer, because I've done 60 flips. I've sold hundreds of houses. I've run hundreds and hundreds of CMAs. I know what I'm looking at. And so like I have people that bring me a deal to hard lend on it. And because I'm putting up my own cash, I'm only doing it if it's a good deal. And I look at the numbers, I'm like, this is not a good deal. And a lot of times they either back out, find something else, or go ahead, Ted.
The misconception, I think, with hard money lending is a lot of people that haven't done it or are just new to the industry in general. They think that by doing a hard money loan, that automatically that property is being held by the hard money lender. And if they fault, then that hard money lender automatically just gets that property. But really, you guys got to still go through the whole entire foreclosure process. And it isn't as easy as just getting a property. I guess some people would sign it over, which would make life easy, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot.
No. for who? Make life easy for the
lending company. Like, I guess, I mean, if that person, if they couldn't pay their bills on it, they could theoretically sign it over to you like a quitclaim deed to the company, which,
deed
like
in lieu of foreclosure.
Yeah.
But it isn't always that easy. Like, because I think a lot of people, I mean, I can't tell you how many clients I work with, and they're like, oh, if I do hard money and I can't do it, they just get the property, so they have nothing to lose. I'm like, well, it's not that easy. Can you kind of clarify that process when it comes to being a hard money lender, since both of you guys are in that industry? If somebody faults, you got to go through the whole entire
Are you saying
process.
Defaults?
Yeah.
If they default on a loan?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, and I'll let you speak to this. I'm sure you've gone
So if
through
somebody defaults on a loan, it's the same as if you didn't pay your mortgage on the house you live in. It's exactly the same. The same process, same everything. Every state is different. If you're in a mortgage state or a deed of trust state, there's two different ways. It's judicial and non-judicial foreclosure states. So it depends. Like somebody catching this episode in Iowa is going to be completely different than South Dakota, Nebraska, Florida, whatever. But generally, you're going to have to file a public notice if somebody defaults on a loan, they're late on payments, they can't make it work. You have to go through the legal process, and typically you're going to involve an attorney unless you're doing it yourself, which I don't know why you would ever do that. But pro tip, hire an attorney. They will have to then post the late notice in publication, typically over a period of weeks, where they have to say, this person owes us this, and then it's basically a notice to any other creditors. So if I have first mortgage on it and Neil has a second mortgage on it, it means I have priority over him. So if I have a first mortgage position, that means I can foreclose on that property, and everything below me is going to get completely wiped out. So I have a first at $80,000. Neil has a second mortgage at $20,000 that he loans Ted Kosh. You don't make the payments. We have to foreclose on you. If the first position lender forecloses on that property, it wipes out the second. If the second position mortgage on the property files a foreclosure and they foreclose on it, the first one is still in place. So they're basically assuming the liability that the borrower had on both the first and the second mortgage. So you have to be really careful with this stuff as a lender. And as a borrower, what you're talking about, Ted, is basically a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So you buy a property, you can't execute on your business plan for a variety of reasons or whatever they may be. And you may say, look, I'll deed this property back to you or over to you. I hate it when people say I give it back to the bank. The bank never owned the frickin' property. You're giving it to the bank. It had nothing to do with them owning it first. I just have to get that rant over. You're not giving it back to the bank. The bank never owned it, ever.
I didn't want it to be.
I had a property with a partner, and the partner's like, oh, I'm not going to help with that anymore. Just give it back to the bank. Let's move on. And I'm like, that's why we're not partners anymore.
This is a case in point right here. So when you're a lender, and Neil, I would assume you're going to agree with this, like you have a shitload of risk. Like you have to know your underwriting, you have to know your borrower, you have to know the asset itself, you have to know the rehab scope that they're doing. You have to trust that they're actually hiring the right people. And also, you're not going to be out there babysitting everything. You have to do all this with information they provide and then whatever you're doing on your own. And if they don't execute on it, and especially if they're a newer borrower and they don't have a ton of reps under them for, flips or rentals or whatever, like that amplifies the risk. So people don't understand why hard money lenders charge what they charge. This is why. There's so much risk involved because people are just like, oh, well, that didn't work out. Just take the property. And it's like, well, yeah, but you also signed a personal guarantee. Yeah. And that's what you have to have as a hard money lender. You have to have a personal guarantee, a promissory note, a deed of trust, and then whatever else, depending on the state you're on, a sale and loan agreement that talks about basically the mechanics of it. And yeah, we've had situations like that before where people, get behind on notes. But to your comment earlier, Ted, like, well, that just makes it easy. They can just sign the property over to you. It's like, you don't freaking want that at all as a lender. Like, I don't want stuff in our inventory. Now, is it a bonus if it happens? It's happened 2 times. We've had to foreclose on a borrower that had 2 properties that we made loans on. And this is over 470 loans. So we've been very fortunate. But we've also underwritten pretty well, I think, over that period of time. And we took those properties and actually made money on one because we're all real estate investors that own the business. So we went out, flipped it. It's in Lincoln. The other one we took a bath on. We probably ended up in a wash situation, but there's a ton of risk, and people are like, they don't understand that. They're like, oh, what's the big deal? And I'm like, well, it is a big deal. It's my money. It's other people's money. It's like we're minding the store here. So excuse me for wanting to know what you're going to do with all this hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's good to talk about that because that conversation isn't happening, and people think it's private money, so they just automatically assume.
Yeah, private money is people's money, and money equals time, by the way. We were talking about that earlier, right? If you give me $100,000 or 50 or 20 or whatever the number is, that represents the amount of time that you have spent working at whatever your hourly rate is for your time. And you're handing me your time represented in money. And so I think that's a big disconnect. And if you get private money from somebody that it's friends, family, random people, whatever, you got to keep in mind that represents hours and hours and hours of their life they put into labor to turn that labor into dollars.
And then they trusted you enough and they cared enough about what your dreams were to give you that opportunity.
So it just
so the weight is so heavy on that responsibility.
Yeah, it reframes your whole viewpoint on money when people trust you with something. That is a huge deal.
And I built my entire business on 18% interest hard money loans because I was a kid. You know what I mean? And we just learned that speed is key.
Yep.
You look for the right deals, and we definitely lost some along the way.
The ones you lose on are definitely like failing forwards.
Oh yeah, lots of failing years. Like, what have you failed forward on? Plenty.
Yes.
Plenty of times.
Well, speaking of
failing forward,
this failing forward is brought to you by Magic Door.
Magic Door is the AI-powered property management platform designed to handle everything from the rent cycle to the vacancy and maintenance cycles. During the rent cycle, Magic Door collects rent, sends automatic reminders, deducts management fees, and distributes payments to owners. In the vacancy cycle, Magic Door streamlines listings, tenant applications, seamless multi-language communication, screening tenants, and converting applications into leases with one click. And for the maintenance cycle, Magic Door's AI handles everything, asking tenants key questions, assigning tasks to vendors, and scheduling repairs automatically without you getting involved. With no hidden fees, no onboarding costs, and seamless AI-powered automation, Magic Door takes care of the entire property management lifecycle so you can focus on what matters most.
Got anything that jumps to mind when we're talking about this topic? Something that didn't go well, you learned from it, moved on?
Something you would never take back because it had a lesson out of the end?
Oh, there are many. When I was 25, I bought a 10-plex. I bought a 10-plex with my business partner now, Brad Flanagan, his wife Jamie, and
We've had Brad on.
Yep. So him and I work together pretty hand in hand in a lot of the things that we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
And this was our first ever dealing. So we buy this building from Colin Schwartz of all people. You know,
Was it on Ames Street, North Omaha?
it's on Franklin.
Okay.
It was like 45th and Franklin-ish, right?
Oh yeah, I know
you
this
probably.
one.
Oh God, yeah. I have stories for days on this building. There's a livestock clause in my lease agreement because of this building, right? Yeah, just the livestock, just the stuff I ran into.
Most Colin Schwartz's early
I
stories
didn't
start
know
off
that-
with something like this.
That property was like a hot potato there for a while. Like I think the Watsons owned it for a while. Colin bought it, like flipped it over to apparently you guys.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
And we were like, we just bought this for $35,000 a door. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
How can we lose?
Yeah.
We bought this thing for pennies, you know? And so I was, like I said, I was a 25-year-old kid. I was making good money, but all the money I was making was going directly back into real estate, you know, because we were flipping houses. So it's not like I have a ton of cash. And long story short, this property was a just CapEx tsunami. You're just dumping into this, you know, $30,000 a month every single month, $20,000, just constantly pouring into this building, trying to stabilize it because it was just run into shambles. And it got to a point to where like we're all partners in this and we can't pull our weight. And we just like essentially capital calls happen, you know, everyone's got to pony up, and we weren't in a position to do so. And they kind of wrote it off and gave us some grace. And then another one would come and we couldn't. And another one, all of a sudden we're slipping behind very, very far into this building. And then eventually we had to get bought out of it. And so Brad and I had to sit down and come up with an agreement to buy us out of the building and wash our hands from it and be able to just walk away from it because they were just so much more invested in it than we were at that point in time. And I'll never forget. I mean, I was a young kid. He was, he's almost a decade older than me. They had all the cards. He had every opportunity to take advantage of me in that situation because I'm also the partner that didn't come to the table with their half, you know. And he was just incredibly fair about it, comparatively upfront, honest, and really generous with the agreement we came to get us out of it. And I guess the lesson I learned from that is he's my partner to this day in many other ventures with a lot more on the line because I know what it's like when things go bad. Mm-hmm. Right. So I trust him in the trenches because we've had to go through the trenches together, and everything's great in a partnership when it's sunshine and rainbows. But how does your partnership handle when things go south? And another thing I learned from that is now every time I launched a roofing company a couple years ago, got a profitable sold. I've done this, I've done that. So I'll probably continue to do odds and ends things. But the one thing that I've learned is in the upfront operating agreement, you write the exit clause. So when everyone's happy and excited and dreaming of how successful this is going to be, at that time, here's how it works if one of us has to be bought out. Here's how voting rights work if we don't agree. Here's how capital calls are structured with deadlines, all that type of stuff.
It's it's equivalent of you dating somebody and it's going really well, and then you're like, listen, can we just agree to talk about the breakup right now? There's a super, super awkward conversation when everything is positive because it's the honeymoon period,
prenup.
right? Yeah. It's so important to do that. You have to have the tough conversations up front, otherwise you're going to avoid them, and then they're not important until they are. And then it's a glaring light on your inadequacies as a partner.
Yeah.
I remember I owned a local business when my wife and I were getting engaged, getting married, and we had to talk. My partner's like, you got to get a prenup. At this time we're dating for a little over a year. And I'm like, hey, so we have to do a prenup here. And then her parents and their reaction to doing a prenup, they're like, is this really the guy you want to be with? And so there was a lot of discussion in that. And I remember how awkward it was. But in the end,
what do you think your net worth was at the time you asked her for a prenup?
I mean,
be honest. What was it?
I mean, I had a rental. I owned one house that I was taking care of my grandmother. and then I had this partnership in this business that I ended up did not get paid out in the end, but that was the deal with the partnership.
You had a negative net worth. You're like, this is for your protection,
no,
Jessica.
My cars were paid off at the time, just so you know, and I had 3 of them.
Got that.
So
oh my God, that's hilarious.
It wasn't more than a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's
probably more than it is now.
Thanks, real estate.
Yes.
Okay.
Another great failing forward was I went through what Ted's going through with his fourplex, and I bought a sixplex in Midtown.
2 blocks away from my fourplex.
Yeah, 2 blocks away from a wholesaler. I'm in Vegas. He wants $400 for it. I was like, I'll buy it for $360. Done. So I think I'm getting a good deal because I just talked this guy down. It was a 28-month construction cycle. Oof. City shut me down. I had to get everything from a new, what do they call it? A breaker meter bank. To the point, 15 months on order during COVID. So you can't even progress the electrical.
My meter bank is on question right now.
Yeah, so. And it was 15 months if you need a new one for $15,000. You know what I mean? And so this one project, I was on such a just skyrocket trajectory because I haven't really talked about it, but I mean, I am a full-time mortgage lender. And I was rookie of the year, and I do, I've had 100-year plus just loans and just mortgage. So I mean, I have a full-time assistant in that. We've barely touched on it, but I am absolutely a full-time lender. And so I'm doing that, and that's going, and then the flips are going, and all these things are going in my favor. I'm buying rentals, having Airbnbs, and then I buy this building, and 28 months of pain. I got popped by the city. I essentially had to take it down to studs. I mean, the budget on it. $450. It's all said and done. Yeah, and then $150,000 in holding costs over 28 months of this thing just sitting vacant.
Oh,
and
man.
I borrowed my down payment and threw it on my credit line, which then hurt the liquidity of the flipping business. So then slowed down my ability to make capital. And then your revolving debt is a short-term rate, right? And so then he feels it. Rates adjust.
Ted's in pain right now.
When I start my, my credit line's 4%. By the time I'm done, my credit line's 9%. And just that debt starts to drown you. And so I spent a year thinking I'm going to go bankrupt. I won't be able to out-earn this problem. And I did. And I begged and I borrowed and I leveraged and I just never quit. And I was able to, it's stabilized building now. It's 4 Airbnbs, 2 long-term rentals. The cash flows a tiny bit. When the market improves, rates come down, it'll be a good buy at some point. Man. I'll hold it for the rest of my life kind of thing to make even on it. Time heals all wounds. Yeah, but...
it's like sitting on an egg that's never going to hatch.
Yeah, but I survived. Yeah. And so then there's a recovery period of that to restabilize your finances because it was ugly. But the big takeaway there was for me that I spent my entire 20s betting the house. So I would push in all the chips and I'd win. I'd push in all the chips and I'd win because I had nothing to lose. Yeah. I was 23. I didn't know, you want my $20,000 Camry? I nothing was on the line, right? But then I got to a point where, I have 21 rentals. I have a portfolio. I have everything that I have built in my life, and I could lose it all if I can't finish this project because the dominoes can start falling. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so what I learned for my life is I will never be in a position to where an opportunity forces me to push in all of my chips again. Yeah. There's a point in your career where you have to do that to get going, but there's also a point where you have to have the wisdom to dial it back a little bit because it's not worth it to do another one of those.
Wisdom from a 31-year-old. I love this. Very well said, though, and very on point, actually.
Neil, I never knew you were this young until we really got talking about lately. I always thought you were closer to 40, to be honest with you.
I've lived a lot of life. Yeah, I got the grays to prove it.
I want to ask you something. This I think might hit home for people because let's look at your businesses. So you have a flipping business, a mortgage business, a rental business, and a agent business. Mm-hmm. Okay, so almost all of these except for the rentals are related to market activity, right? So these are dictated a lot of times, well, not dictated, but you can out hustle the market at times, right? That's obviously possible. Your top performers are going to rise up, but we've had a really, really low activity level in the market. There's been high interest rates for the last several years comparatively to historical averages. So agent business, typically slow. Flipping business, at least mine is down.
Painful.
And I don't like it at all when I'm doing it anyway. And then the mortgage business, my sister's been in this business for 25, 30 years, something like that. Long time. And so how do you make it work during that time when the market is tough? How do you feed your kids? How do you survive, pay the bills? Do you pivot? Do you double down? I'm curious on your take on that, because you lived in a high-touch time of real estate when transactions are low in general.
Yes.
Like, what do you do? Like,
Yeah.
how do you pay the bills?
Oh, that's a great question. I strip.
Dipstick. He's a regular dipsticks.
That's
He invests in weight loss.
Yeah,
and,
that's why I had to get in shape this year. I had to pay those
I
bills.
was not expecting that at all. That was awesome. Good job.
Yeah. So to answer your question, this also was a point of wisdom for me, because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I am diversified. And it's like, no, you are not diversified if all your streams are in the same sector, because that sector is all affected by the same negative parameters, risks, everything like that.
That's what Jason Dries told us.
And so like I learned that the hard way, because lending slowed down. Airbnbs became less profitable. Flips became less profitable. I think it's a combination of, I work hard. I've done a really good job of leveraging my time, even in all of these things. But I think I did just double down. I looked at where I was making the most money on my activity, and I just doubled down on that. And we just had to get smarter, and we had to get better. So like our flipping business went from being incredibly profitable to not very profitable in a bad market. And then the market didn't get any better, and our flipping business is as profitable as it used to be. Because we took more time dialing it in. We got our money figured out better. Our marketing now converts our marketing dollars are right now 250% more efficient than they were. When I look at what my KPIs were for what I used to have to spend to get a deal to what I have to spend now, I am significantly lower per deal. And that's not because the market got better. That's not because things got easier. It's because we were forced to do better. So I spent more time digging into the systems, to the process, to our flow, to the efficiency to make it work. And now we're making as much money flipping as we were in the heyday. And we're having great tons, like the same marketing dollars are producing 2 to 3 times the amount of appointments.
Dang.
And so then we had to get our crew in check. We had to get our money in check. We now wholesale a lot.
Yeah.
So our part of our secret is we flip cosmetic. If I can't get it done in 2 months, I don't buy it. I don't flip it.
Don't give me your eyes.
I
feel them piercing into my soul.
We've all been there. I've had the 15-month hold, the 2-year holds, the 12-month.
28 months.
28 months. Yeah. Ding, ding. Yeah. And it's like.
I haven't hit 28 months yet, but
knocking on wood there.
Who knows?
But and so it's like on that side of it, we just had to get better. We had to pay more attention, because like when 2021 hit, we all thought we were brilliant, because money was falling from the sky, and then we realized we just weren't that smart, and that it was the market that had given us that opportunity. And so for example, for the flipping business, we just got better. On the lending business, once again, just had to refocus in. I work more efficiently than I've probably ever worked, and I've done a really good job of leveraging, because you hear about everything I do, and I have a couple other side things that I have ownership in that pay. That
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. Like that's the key to it all.
We did look at your shirtless picture there before the show here.
Yeah.
Ted is we, not me.
Owen pulled it up. He goes, "Look at this, Ted."
The royal we. Yeah. And so I think it was understanding, because we all are busy, but is what you're doing generating revenue? And if it's not generating revenue, how are you leveraging that to somebody else? And so it's like, yes, I wear a lot of hats, but I wear
but no shirts.
No shirts.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah.
And I wear the revenue generating hat.
Yeah.
So like in the flipping business, I'm sales and acquisition. If you can do that well, it takes me like less than 10 hours a week to flip 20 houses a year, 15 houses a year. Really. Because I go on 3 appointments a week. That's 3 hours of time probably. It's making a handful of calls. I work with banks for a living. I'm a lender, and so I'm done. And so like that time efficiency is so extreme that then I hop over to my my mortgage business. I call my clients. I call my realtors, and I have an assistant behind me with 25 years of lending experience. Truthfully, she's the one reading the pay stubs, calculating the income tax, and making sure everything goes smoothly. I have someone in place for that, and it makes more sense for me to pay her than to try to take on that responsibility. So then I hop into that seat, I call my clients, I make sure everything's on track. I make sure everything's happy, check in with her. Like, she's my point to lending. I don't talk to a processor. I don't talk to underwriting. I talk to Angela. She tells me everything I need to know about my lending business. And then I move over to Vantage. And then I go through our CRM and I call all of our hard money people, all our DSCR stuff. I work on that side of stuff. And then the rest of my time is like, how do I make my marketing better? How do I make my systems more efficient? How do I squeeze more out of this time? And so I really think this market downturn just forced us to evolve. Because you didn't really have a choice. You couldn't be lazy and you couldn't be inefficient and still run successful businesses.
I like that, man. That's a great encapsulation of kind of like how to pivot when the market changes, and what do you do when the it's not raining, money's not raining from the sky. So I like that a lot.
Point of this is that after listening to this podcast, I feel like a POS. I need to do better.
Yeah, get your shit together.
Be better,
man.
Ted.
Come be superhuman with me,
create
Ted.
better systems.
But I think, like, I hear it all the time, and there's like certain things that like rhyme. You know what I mean? And it's like all the time people will come to me and be like, "Well, I'm a realtor and he's a contractor and we should flip houses together." I go, "No, you shouldn't." I go, "What?" I said, because he's a contractor that's used to being paid a general contracting fee. Mm-hmm. And so then you get in this point to where like he still wants a general contracting fee, or you get to the end of the rainbow and he made less than, I mean, I have done so many deals where my general contractor probably made more than I did. Mm-hmm. And they don't recognize that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then on the real estate side, it's the same thing. Well, then they waive their real estate commission, and then when that deal doesn't go as they expected to, then they're salty. And so it's a tough thing. And people are like, "Well, Neil, what should I charge in this?" And my opinion is like, when I get in a partnership, I want equal ownership.
Yes.
Because like I 50-50. 30-30-30, because I all want us to want this as badly. And so like in that scenario, like I would waive the real estate commission, and I expect the general contractor to waive their fee entirely, not reduce fee. Because once you get into this game of like, well, I'll go to X% listing, I'll go to X%, override, it starts to get greedy. Mm-hmm. Whereas if we can strip that out and say, hey, we split the win together down the middle, then you guys are completely aligned in what you want. And I think that's so important.
Neil, I love everything you're saying because I agree with you. And I mean, I think that people just need to replay this over and over again to kind of get the content, let it sink in with the nuggets that you're just dropping left and right. I mean, you've given great tips. You've given people ideas to really focus, systematize, and be better. And but we do have to conclude this, and we have a section that we famously call the OT with Owen and Ted.
You're going to get OT with Owen and Ted, presented by PropStream.
PropStream is one of the most trusted real estate data software solutions. PropStream benefits all real estate professionals. You can find properties and contact homeowners on the go with PropStream's mobile app. We offer free academy courses tailored to real estate investors and agents. Take advantage of our live webinar demos to learn the software and scale your real estate business. Visit www.propstream.com and sign up for your 7-day free trial to get more leads and grow your business.
And we have a list of questions that we mix up on occasion, but we do ask every person these questions in general. Not always the same questions, but they're good questions.
Sure.
And we give you some hints on some of them, but the first question is by Mr. Dashner here.
I'm mixing this up. Right out of the gate.
It's a remix.
Here we go. What is something that you consider to be your unfair advantage or unique ability over people that are in your same world?
I think I do a really good job at seeing the whole chessboard. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like it's three-dimensional chess. Like we find ways to win on all the levels through, verticality. And so like I have a pinch of title, I have a pinch of insurance. We make money if we redo the roof. We do this, we do that. And so like the way that we've been able to vertically integrate and the way that I'm able to zoom out and look at the machine as a whole, I think is my biggest advantage is I don't get caught in the weeds and I don't get focused on the wins. I don't focus on the results. I focus on the activities. And it's the same thing when you zoom out and look at the business. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I think I do a really good job of being able to zoom out and see the full picture to figure out where I need to move my troops, where I need to allocate my time, and where I need to make my adjustments.
Move the troops. Okay, so since we're switching up here, I'm going to go to Owen's next question normally. And it says, what would your title of your first book be, and what topic would it cover?
Ooh, I'm going to have to go with autobiography because as you guys have gotten a taste of, it's been a pretty wild ride. And I'm going to call it, you can put this in fiction or nonfiction. Either way, no one's going to believe it.
Nice.
And that would be what I title my book.
Okay. Love it. All right. Next question for you. You have your own podcast. It's very popular. A lot of listeners, just like REIA Radio. Who would you have on if you could have anybody in the world, doesn't matter the genre or vertical they're in, and what would you ask them?
You know, it would be Elon Musk. I am just absolutely fascinated.
He comes up a lot.
I mean, come on, right? I would need to know. I'd want to polygraph him and see if aliens are real.
Ooh.
Because if anyone knows, it's him.
That is a
That would be what I would
question.
do. Yeah.
That's a fantastic question. Yeah, man, that's so good. I can't believe I never even thought of that. Like he has to know.
He's the guy that knows. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a sad day. We're at your funeral. Owen and I are still alive because we're young and vibrant, and there is somebody that's going to give your eulogy. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a best friend. Who's going to do it? And what legacy do you hope to leave behind, or what do you hope they say about you?
Man, it's almost that's such a tough question. I think I'd want a comedian. To give my eulogy.
Which one?
Like a Theo Vaughn.
Theo Vaughn.
Like a Theo
Okay,
Vaughn.
all right.
Yeah. He reminds me of one of my closest friends.
He's kind of the rednecky, longer hair.
Just
like,
totally
he's pretty funny.
out there.
He's funny.
You could make a situation like that hilarious because I think life should be a celebration. But he wouldn't know what my legacy would look like. I think
So it's like a roast?
a little bit. I think you'd have fun. Yeah. I think it'd be fun if you actually had a comedian do your eulogy. I don't know if that's, but yeah.
Or they do a cremation and then they call it the roast.
Yes, I like it. I would do
I don't
do
know if
that.
that's ever been done before.
I would do that. All right.
Okay.
This is it.
I'll
Hey,
put it in
new
my
idea.
will.
We're workshopping
My family
this.
is gonna love this. Yeah. No, but I think the legacy that I tell myself is I want, when I look at myself in the mirror, I try to envision two things: that I finished my day and I did everything that I could do, and then I try to live my life like my son is watching. And that if you take that,
That's really good.
Everywhere
You had to have stolen that from somebody.
I don't think so. I may have. And so, like when I work out, do you do that extra rep when no one's looking and you have that opportunity to do the thing with lower character? When everything you do, if your children were watching, would you be proud? And so I don't know how he will describe that
That's deep.
and what he remembers, but that is how I want people to perceive me. That I did put it all on the table, that I made an impact, and I did the most that I could. Have the biggest impact I could to the people in my life.
That's a deep thing to think about.
That's pretty good, man. I gotta give you props there. Have you had a formal? You mentioned Jeff Cohn earlier as somebody that kind of gave you some guidance early on when you were just getting started. Do you have any other people that have impacted you in your either business or life that improved your trajectory that you want to maybe shout out to, or have you mentored anybody yourself?
I have more people that have had mentors into my life than I can probably count. I think one of the things I was most blessed getting into business young and being so hungry so young is a lot of men much further down the road were excited to pour into me. Big ones that come to mind were like, thanks Ted. But,
Ted's got a dirty mind.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. But like Jerry Johnson, owner of like a Pillar Financial Mortgage, at a very young age, it wasn't business advice, it was life advice. Jeff Cohn, I think, had a really big impact of my shaping, and Tom Simmons at Better Homes and Gardens. I have nothing but incredible things to say about him, and he poured a lot into me and my understanding of business in the network we live in.
Yeah,
because there's so much more than sales. It's not we're all playing chess on a 3-dimensional board as we get through this stuff.
Neil, after being on the podcast, kind of seeing the type of people that we are, how we do things here. Now, we're going to be sober for the next 4 weeks on our podcast, just so you know, as we do dry January. But is there somebody that you would recommend that have on the podcast that you think would get a lot out of this, and vice versa?
Have you guys had Cyrus Jaffrey on?
No.
Has he is such, we all know him. Mm-hmm. He's such an incredible human first, and then has built such an impressive insurance business.
You're the one who told me about him. Yeah. Does he have a real estate business too?
He doesn't. So he's all insurance. I know they do a lot of like the investor stuff though, but he's like real estate adjacent. But I mean, he came from a refugee from Afghanistan where his mom, when he was a young child, had to like carry them out of the country barefoot, to coming to America, not speaking, being here through right after like 9/11 happened, and dealing with all of that as someone of that descent, and then going from that to running probably the largest insurance, conglomerate in our state, launching nationwide tech that he's now on the cutting edge of. He's an incredible father first, is done working at 4 p.m. every day. Has 4 young children. There's I think if you were to bring someone on real estate adjacent and you want story inspiration, I would say Cyrus Jaffrey. Incredible human being.
Well, you didn't have to do all of that description. I mean, now we're going to feel incredibly guilty if we don't have him on. So, okay, thanks for the guilt trip.
I know Cyrus. I'll reach out to him.
That's awesome. So last question for you, Neil, on the OT here is, are you looking for anything in your business right now? And how can somebody catching this episode help you with what you're looking for?
The 2 things I'm looking for right now is I actually we're going to hit a point to where we're not going to be able to flip any more houses financially. And we don't turn off our marketing budget. So our marketing machine rolls. And so I am a licensed realtor, which means I can legally wholesale. And I do plan to sell some of those properties off.
Does your brokerage allow that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they do.
Because there's only like 2 brokerages in the city, I believe, that allow it.
Yeah, it's a pain in the neck, lots of paperwork, but
Yeah.
we're allowed to do it.
Interesting.
And so I am looking
And,
for
and who are you with right now?
EXP.
Okay.
But a just short, small buyers list of like serious people. You know, it's one thing I'm looking for. And then anyone that's looking to get into real estate investing, I want them to consider me a resource. Like, that's my passion, is taking people from 0 to 10. Like, let's learn how to flip houses. Let's learn how to buy those rentals. I started young with nothing and had to figure it out. And now I'm in a position to where I can provide so much value on those first steps, not just from financing, but contractors and advice and just the whole picture. Because especially like those house hackers that want to like buy the duplex, live in it, buy another duplex, live in it. You have to put the steps in the right, like the stones, the stepping stones in the right place. And if you don't, the bank closes the door on you. You know what I mean? You got to know when to make the switch from mortgage over to commercial, where this DSCR lives, right? And I'm just kind of spread between all 3 of those from an experience standpoint. I think I provide a lot of value to my investor clients. And so I'm always looking to help more investors grow their business.
Wow. I think I might actually be reaching out to you to come walk my 4 unit, because you've been through that I'm now having to do myself.
I get PTSD. I'll be in the corner walking.
Trust me, I'm in the middle of the PTSD right now. But first off, thanks for coming on. I know this has been a long journey to get you on here, so we appreciate it very much. Thank you. I didn't think that, honestly, that we would have these deep conversations that we have, because you and I have talked, and it's been very service level.
Yeah.
And I mean, man, you just literally just dropping nuggets and nuggets. I mean, when we pre-recorded our episode for the Mondays real estate rundown, you can just pick your gold nugget out of that one.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it was great. But thank you for coming down, and thank you for being vulnerable and talking. I know that you had some discomfort, I think talking about your high school and kind of time frame there, so I appreciate that, because that's kind of what we're all about here. And there's so many things that you and I relate on, and it'll be a whole nother cigar conversation that we'll have here real soon.
Yes.
But if you're listening to the first time, please leave us a review on your favorite format. We do have one to read here, and it's from Colton Plackey, Placke. These podcasts are phenomenal. Ted Nolan have interviewed some of the biggest investors nationwide, providing value to all of our listeners, no matter where you may be in your real estate journey. So thank you, Colton. Please give us a review. I appreciate that. We have 126 5-star reviews on Apple alone. And then I know that our other formats have 40 and 55 stars, so we appreciate that very much. You give us a written review, we will read that on our platform. And the best gift that you can give us is sharing us with your friends, family, and other real estate investors, because those shares, those likes, those comments are actually what keep this podcast up and running. And also reaching out to our sponsors, because they're the ones that pay the bills and keep the lights on. And with that, Owen Dashner, will you see us out?
On behalf of REIA Radio, Ted Kosh, and the absent Aiden Bear, who has some mysterious disease. I'm Owen Dashner, and you've been listening to Neil All Hats, No Shirts, Galas.
Signing off.
On behalf of REIA Radio, Ted Kosh, and the absent Aiden Bear, I'm Owen Dash
with his diseases.
with all of his petri dish of let me start this again.
Yeah, maybe something about his life in there would be funny.
He's not going to come back. He will probably not come back.
He doesn't listen.